This is iFIBER 1 News. Here are today's top stories.
Jorge Duarte Tapia swore an oath to protect this country when he joined the U.S. Army in June 2006.
A man was sentenced to nearly 2 years in prison for a March 100-plus mile-per-hour pursuit on Interstate 90 between Moses Lake and George.
In spite of many expert prognostications for a severe and early wildfire season in the Northwest, it is the opposite which has actually been the case this year.
Planning this Wenatchee Museum exhibit had a payoff, a statewide award of excellence.
From the iFIBER 1 newsroom, this is iFIBER 1 News. And it starts now.
Jorge Duarte Tapia swore an oath to protect this country when he joined the U.S. Army in June 2006. He remembers swearing a second oath before he deployed for 18 months in Iraq, an oath that made him a U.S. citizen. But now U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says the 31-year-old from Warden has spent his life in the country illegally and could be deported at any time to his birthplace in Sinaloa, Mexico.
You know, my parents were immigrants, and me being the only child and the oldest, having my green card was kind of like, I need to get my citizenship, you know, and I graduated high school with that mentality, and that's why I had joined the military, to just get it. And for now, it's just kind of like kicking the butt because they're saying that I really don't have it.
He says his recruiter and superiors at the Spokane Military Entrance Processing Station guided him through the steps, and he was naturalized in a short ceremony.
They told me I had to be a citizen and that I had to go through that ceremony first before I would go through the ceremony of being sworn in as a soldier.
This was a common practice for the military until 2018, when citizenship and immigration services centers that had operated on military bases were closed. Those centers used to offer fast-track naturalization once new recruits like Jorge had completed basic training. Their closure came after the Trump administration ordered stricter background checks and longer service periods for immigrant soldiers before they could become citizens.
Back then, it was just kind of like, yeah, you know, I'm going to get my citizenship. I'm not going to have to worry about it. I'm going to go fight for this country that I've been living in.
Jorge was trained as a combat engineer. In October 2007, he deployed to Forward Operating Base Caldwell, east of Baghdad, working in supply and logistics. He returned to the U.S. in March 2009. Since leaving the Army the following year, Jorge has worked in agriculture and other blue-collar jobs around his hometown of Warden. He started using methamphetamine, and in late May he was in the Grant County Jail on a domestic violence case when ICE found him and told him he could be forced out of the country. Deportation agents took him to Yakima for his first intake and released him wearing an ankle monitor.
I couldn't think of anybody to call, and the first person I called was my dad, and he goes, "What? You're getting deported?" I'm like, literally, that's what they told me. You know, as of right now, you have this charge on you, and you don't have any papers, or you know, because my green card expired back in 2014, and we can literally just send you back because we have no history or paper documentation that we can find that says that you're a U.S. citizen, or that, you know, you've been working with a legal, you know, permanent resident card, or even that, a working visa.
Jorge says he hasn't been able to find the relevant documents that would prove his case. The Army Recruiting Battalion for the Northwest confirms he joined the military with a valid permanent resident card, but says it has no documents regarding his naturalization. However, Adams County Auditor Heidi Hunt said Tuesday that Jorge registered to vote in June 2008, something only available to U.S. citizens. One of the addresses listed on his registration was FOB Caldwell in Iraq. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is the agency that oversees naturalizations. Asked about Jorge's case and provided with the alien registration number that identified him, the agency declined to provide any information. As a matter of policy, a spokeswoman said, USCIS doesn't comment on individual cases.
So I've asked them for copies of my documents, but they say they can't pull nothing up.
They can't find them.
They can't find them. They have no paperwork, no history, even any kind of computer that they can pull up that says that I've been naturalized.
In the last 3 years, immigrant veterans like Jorge have found themselves subject to deportation right alongside those who never served. A June report by the Government Accountability Office found that ICE has not followed its own rules on handling veterans' cases and has no policy to identify and document the veterans it screens prior to removal. Jorge was told until his case is resolved he has no legal work permit, putting him out of a job while he awaits a resolution. He and his partner have 2 small children. Since mid-June, he's been undergoing court-ordered drug treatment in Wenatchee. Jorge is due to meet with ICE agents again on July 15th. Jefferson Robbins, iFIBER 1 News.
This segment is brought to you by
Change doesn't have to be complicated. With a low-profile microwave hood combination that's ready to install right out of the box. It fits in the same space as your under-cabinet hood, so you can get your microwave off the countertop and make space for the routines worth keeping. The low-profile microwave hood combination from the #1 selling appliance brand in the USA.
Whirlpool Appliances, now available at more furniture in Ephrata.
A man was sentenced to nearly 2 years in prison for a March 100-plus mile-per-hour pursuit on Interstate 90 between Moses Lake and George. Kelby McKenzie was sentenced to 23 months behind bars after pleading guilty to felony eluding and DUI stemming from his March 14th arrest. A state trooper was patrolling I-90 near Hiawatha when he clocked a Volvo SUV traveling east at 117 miles per hour. The driver, later identified as McKenzie, took the Hiawatha exit and came to a stop at the off-ramp stop sign where the trooper approached and noticed an open beer can in the center cup holder. The trooper asked McKenzie for his license when McKenzie accelerated, driving on the shoulder and nearly striking the guardrail as he pulled away. McKenzie, who troopers say continued to drink the beer in his car, accelerated to nearly 120 miles per hour before taking exit 174 and then heading back onto I-90 westbound. Another trooper successfully deployed spike strips near milepost 160, and McKenzie eventually came to a stop and was taken into custody. This is Joe Utter for iFIBER 1 News.
This segment is brought to you by
Your taste buds bored? Well, then bring them to Jay's Teriyaki. Not only does Jay's have a variety of teriyaki dishes, they also offer mouth-watering salads and sides. Call Jay's 509-764-5155. Jay's Teriyaki, located at 123 East Broadway in Moses Lake, because it's all in the sauce.
In spite of many expert prognostications for a severe and early wildfire season in the Northwest, it is the opposite which has actually been the case this year. Currently, there are no major wildfires in Washington or British Columbia, and only one small fire in Oregon, compared to last year when there were multiple large fires burning north of the border and widespread smoke effects in Washington from them. In fact, according to the U.S. Interagency Fire Center, there have been fewer fires and less acreage burned so far this year than any time up to this point in the season over the past decade. Weather and climate blogger Cliff Mass says part of the quiet season thus far is due to a pattern of precipitation throughout the region which has finally returned to seasonal norms. According to Mass, this trend has resulted in higher moisture levels and available landscape fuels and greatly reduced the occurrence of fire starts within the region. As proof of this assertion, he points to the unusual abundance of lightning activity over the past week, with few, if any, reported fires as a result over much of the area which experienced them. Mass says the cool and wet weather should continue into mid-July, and that the long-term forecast for the remainder of summer is also shaping up as quite favorable for the wildland fire season to remain calmer than in recent years.
Planning this Wenatchee Museum exhibit had a payoff, a statewide award of excellence. From October to February last year, the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center hosted Inland Bounty, the work of Edward S. Curtis in the Columbia River Basin, which showcased the photographer's classic images of Native American life in the region dating back to 1907. At its most recent conference, the Washington Museum Association gave the exhibit its Award of Excellence, recognizing the 3 years of work that curators Casey Koski and Melanie Wachholder put into the project. Over its run, the Curtis exhibit drew more than 2,000 visitors, and the museum hosted 8 special events associated with it. Jefferson Robbins, iFIBER 1 News.
This is iFIBER 1 News. For more information on these stories and other news, visit us online at ifiber1.com or check us out on Facebook.